Away we go.
Good afternoon and welcome to Global Resources for Men. I'm your host, Elysia Bus, and today I have the great pleasure of introducing you to Luke Di Sessa. He's coming to us from Australia. He is the founder, co-facilitator, lead facilitator, what am I saying? Co-facilitator, I'm saying sometimes, of Good, Better, Best Men in Australia. I think it's really cool that he's got it set up as a nonprofit. It just is a little different than what I've seen in some of the other men's groups in Australia. And he is here today to talk to us about so many things. But one of the main things we'll be talking about today is shame and how it is like really impacting men and what we can do to support them. Luke, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Wonderful to be here, Alicia.
I'm glad. Yeah, so Luke and I have known each other for a little bit now, and it's been wonderful to see how much he's progressed and grown both as a person and in the impact that he's making in men's work in Australia. So, Luke, tell us a little bit more out of all the topics that you could have picked today to talk about what men are struggling with. Why shame?
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. I guess I've been involved in this work for 2 years within Good, Better, Best Men, but men's work in general for 6 years. So I've been sitting in circle. Let me just go back while running Good, Better, Best Men. I've been facilitating and co-facilitating circles twice a week with men.
Awesome.
All year, and running men through programs. And I get to see, I guess, the inside of what's going on with men, in both open circles and closed circles, and my own personal journey. And I guess what I see coming through most men is what's holding men back is shame.
Yeah.
Shame builds like layers inside my system, and as men, or I'll speak for myself, I wasn't taught a way to communicate, to discuss that. It's not manly, to discuss
Yeah.
that, to share my emotions. And so it just stays inside and it builds up, and I've got no outlet for it. And I have, physical pursuits, sport, things like that, but it doesn't actually turn and face the issue or whatever it is I'm experiencing or
Mm,
feeling. And for
yeah.
men, the biggest thing I see holding men down and stopping me from being my fullest potential, and other men from being their fullest potential, is the story that's being replayed about this shame, because it's never been spoken out. And
Mm,
give men a confidential, safe space to talk, and it's not long until these things come out. And what that does is it creates room inside the physical system for other things to come in. So instead of the shame continually stacking up until it hits exploding point, by speaking it out in circle with men, it creates this space, this cavity within the system to then be able to refill it with whatever it is I want, such as joy, happiness, fun, all the good things in life. There will always be things like grief and sadness. That's all part of life. And if I'm
sure.
not processing them, if I'm not grieving, if I'm not crying and not allowing that to come out, it's not allowing space back in my body or creating that space back in my body for the good things to come back in. Things like
Yeah.
grief and shame, they probably never go. Like, the grief of losing someone, it never actually goes, but over time it does start to decrease if I've been processing it. And I feel it's the same. My experience is it's the same with shame. The more I speak about it, and it's like layers of an onion, the
Yeah.
more, the big ones feel like the worst layers to come off. And then as
Yeah.
I delve deeper, there's more and more layers from early childhood, things I didn't understand, things I've done as a teenager, me particularly, and in my early 20s probably.
Feel like most of us have been there.
Yeah, right. But by owning those things and speaking about them in a really safe, non-judgmental way, so I'm not being criticized, I can just speak it out and realize that I'm still accepted as I am, and that actually there are probably some other men in the room that have done something similar, and
Mm,
recognize what's going on. And
yeah.
by modeling that process for other men, it also shows how healthy this process is.
Yeah.
Um, Within a circle, all it takes is one man to really delve deep, um, into what's going on in his life, or what he needs to shift. And that accelerates the other men into opening up and stepping into the process. And it becomes really a group healing. We don't say it's therapy. Like, group men's circle is not therapy, but men do find it therapeutic.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Therapeutic, but not therapy. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so important for men to have these spaces that are safe and non-judgmental where they can really come forward and open up and share. As you were saying, like when one man steps forward, one person, they become a permissionary in sharing their stories. And then others, like you said, they just said like, oh, God, what a relief. Can finally share this thing that's been like weighing on my heart that I've been holding somatically in my body. And in a culture, I don't know how it is in Australia, but I feel like in America, like we have such a heavy like cancel culture and spaces where men are really not safe to be able to share because of how they feel that society will view them. Like they're going to get in trouble about something, even if it's just like something they truly want to be accountable for and make amends for and take action to make a change and break those patterns. It makes it harder and harder for them to be able to do so when society is not providing safe spaces for them to, right? Like just putting people in a box. That those are the things that I've been hearing from men around the world, but especially in the United States. Is that something that you also see in Australia?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had many discussions around cancel culture. It is very difficult for a man to speak out or to say what's in his heart for fear, and I'll speak for myself, for fear of saying that one thing that upsets people, and that
Yeah,
one thing, cancel. That's it. I've got all these
yeah,
good messages to say. I speak from my heart. It's coming from a wonderful place, and I'm not perfect. And so
yeah,
guess what? I'm going to get something wrong. And if I get that thing wrong, cancel culture says you're not acceptable anymore. That's my
yeah.
shame, like telling telling itself, like, "Hey, see, they were right." And so it's not a super healthy way to be, I guess. Um, yeah, I mean, all men, good, better, best men. It's in our logo. All men have good within them. We try to bring
Agreed.
out the better so they can be the best version of themselves.
That's
Um, you know,
beautiful.
when I look back, I've had some really, really intense discussions in some meetings that I've had around cancel culture. Particularly, there's some pretty influential, mm, in not a very positive way on social media. Some really influential men saying some really awful things.
Yeah,
And I've had conversations about those men in the past and around cancel culture. And my belief is somewhere in there is a good man. These men are powerful. They have strength. They have really good qualities, and they're acting from their wounding.
yeah,
Um, in one of the discussions I had with somebody, I actually almost got kicked out of a meeting because I mentioned this man's name, and I was told if I support this man, this meeting is over. And that was my point about cancel culture, is that I just mentioned the guy's name. I didn't say I supported him. I just say there's a good man in everyone, and you're willing to cancel this meeting. That's how cancel culture works. This is exactly the example what I'm talking about. Interestingly, with this organization, what they also said was that they employ ex-murderers. And I was like, great. This is exactly my point. Even in a murderer, there is a good man. He's done something bad, and within him is good, and you've seen the good in him. And this is my point for men globally. There is good within each of us. Some just have to dig a
yeah.
little.
And for sure. So we have to dig a little deeper while also having really healthy boundaries to honor like
Absolutely.
our safety and the safety of
100%.
others, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, right? Because there's still people that present really well within spiritual communities and men's groups and women's groups too, because it's not
Yeah.
just about gender, it's about humanity.
Yeah.
Um, that we are not standing by what it is that our values are, that we expect everyone to believe exactly the way that we believe, which comes to the point of cancel culture, right? Because
Mm,
instead of just like shoving people's belief systems down, it's rather coming to a place of high level accountability where we can regulate our own nervous systems with healthy boundaries, but yet
mm,
curiosity and say, well, I don't believe in that. That's not where I'm coming from or how I'm going to live my life. But what's your why? Like, where are you coming from? Right? Like, we don't have to agree with everybody. We don't have to be friends with everybody. But I think that being able to model to others how to have conversations that aren't necessarily comfortable or in agreement, that we can all go further faster with less damage to ourselves and the world around us.
Absolutely. Like this is so paramount to be able to sit in, this is what we do in men's circle. It's a practice space for men to be able to hear each other and possibly not agree with each other. But to receive that man with non-judgment and to hear the place that that's coming from. And really my experience is everybody just wants the best. Everyone wants to feel safe. Everyone wants to feel connected to the family or their people around them. They want to have good close friends. And uh, I've just lost what I was saying. And just by
Happens to the best of
um, thank you.
us.
And by seeing that in everybody, the good qualities, we just have different ways of going about it. And so, how do I keep my lot safe? If I'm projecting my way of doing things on everybody else and saying this is the right way, everybody must do it, it's not really safe. And there's people that won't want to do it. I
Yeah.
provide an option of a way to do things, and people choose, men particularly, or their families choose to step in and play
Yeah.
with this space. And yeah, it really is important to see the why. I love what you said there. What is the essence of why people are doing this? What are their value systems? A lot of
Mhm.
people, a lot of men that come and do the programs within Good, Better, Best Men, they don't understand their own values. And of course we
Yeah.
don't. I wasn't shown, where have I been given the space or shown, hey, come and this is how you show or work out your value system and what's really important to you. It wasn't even done at school. I mean, how valuable would that be? And it changes
Oh,
over time.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like, how do you define value systems if you're not raised in a religious household, right? Because different religions come with general value sets, right? But if that's not the sphere of your influence as a young person, then like, where do you find that?
Mm. Yeah, I guess this is a broader discussion again. Is the religious system is often the morals, and morals are imposed on us from society, from religion, from schools, from outside organizations. But what are my personal values outside of that as well, and do they align?
Absolutely.
And my
Yes.
personal values change over time. Depending
Hmm.
on whether I'm building a family or holidaying or whatever it is, the systems change. And how do I measure that? How do I check that again? And once I'm given those tools and I understand that, then I've got a clearer sight in my life, a lot more focus of what's more important to me, and I can take actions based on that. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a lot of what the coaching I do with my confidence coach clients is values based. And it's not about my values. It's about
mm,
helping people see what their values are and how they assign values to themselves, to people in their family, on different gender spectrums, like men, women, or however anybody defines themselves in that spectrum,
mm,
colleagues at work, right? Like in partnership in whatever partnership looks like for somebody in your friend group, and then being like, okay, like where are you misaligned? Where are you trying to hold somebody else to your values, but you're not willing to live up to your own? And it's not about
mm,
expectations. You're like, if you're trying to create a space holistically where you can feel the safest, the most seen, the most heard, the most understood, the most respected, then you need to be able to look at yourself and at other people like without those projections ideally, right, and be able to accept everyone around you in that same sort of way, but also understanding that just because we want to be treated in a certain way, that doesn't mean that somebody else wants to be treated in the same way,
absolutely.
which is a nuanced difference. Like I say, like the golden rule: treat others as you would like to be treated, right? Do it to others as you would like them to do it to you. But then stepping out of that with mindfulness and being like, well, how does somebody else want to be treated? Like, what's their love language? What's their attachment style? Like, what's their erotic blueprint if you're working in a romantic sexual partnership,
Yeah.
right? And being able to see beyond yourself and your ego. And I think that navigating shame, that so much of it comes from like that expectation, right? You feel
Mm,
shame sometimes because you let somebody down. You like society, a partner, friend, family member, yourself, right? And I think that's so important. Like, I love what you brought forward is just like the ability to speak about it. Like, how do you channel it? It's not about exercising through it, right? Like, it's good to move energy, but you're not actually turning to face it, like you said. And if you don't have the tools or the community, like being able to find one, if it's a therapist, if it's your community for good, better, best men, if it's somebody else that you can reach out to, it's so important for us to not isolate out of shame.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you said around sexual shame as well. It's such a big part of my history. Not being able to talk about what it is that I want, not being able to ask my partner what it is that she likes, those sorts of
Yeah.
things. And I guess I've blundered my way through. I don't even know how I've had sex in the past. I've blundered my way. Um,
I
and
love your honesty and
yeah,
candor. So
and
many
and
of us, I'm sure, are just doing that, just blundering our way through it.
yeah, like based on something I've seen, porn, for example,
Sure.
movie, whatever. It's based on things that I've seen, but not actual experience and not real people. And I've had to learn. What am I, 47 years old? This is actually coming quite new to me now, like in the past year or so. How to communicate openly and honestly, and not feel shame. When hearing a no, or hey, could you do this instead? And understanding that it's not about me, it's actually about her pleasure. What
Yeah.
can I do? And it actually becomes a gift. So once I've been able to change that mindset and have that understanding by speaking about my shame, facing it, and now practicing the new way of being, it's such a beautiful place to be. I think moving
Yeah.
shame, you sort of were saying, like, why do we do these things to move it? Yeah, it's a better way of life, better communicating, but really, it's creativity. For me, like I get to be creative and playful in every space I walk into now. Until I feel that shame again, I get to recognize it. Then thankfully, I've got a lot of good men around me. I can then go speak about it and clear that shame if something comes
Yeah.
up. So keep moving it. It's like a wheel, or snowball rolling down a hill. It just gathers momentum. The more I do it, the more I clear, and the more creative and more playful I get to become. And that's my passion. That's what I want to see men doing all over the world, because what I see, most of what I experience is men stuck. Stuck behind screens, stuck behind games, not speaking up, not living passionately in life, not doing things with passion and excitement, just sort of drudging along in life. And there are things that we have to do, like we have to work, we have to raise kids. Yeah, we have to do all these things. Come and clear shame around it so we can do these things creatively and with joy and fun in our lives and create a better version of ourselves for everybody around us.
No, I love that so much. Yeah, yes to all of it. When you brought up the creative aspect and like talking also about like sexual shame for some people, what I've heard from different people that they don't really like to talk about for men is the shame that can be around penis size and the performance anxiety and any sort of erectile dysfunction, or even like men on the other spectrum, which we don't hear about as much, that are like too large and end up like causing pain for their partners, and like how it's just like they're the flip side. Society's like, oh, great, like you got this big swinging dick. And it's just like, well, yes, but also that comes with its own problems. Like I had a friend in my 20s, and he's ironically Australian, but the first woman he was ever with, he put her in the hospital because she was also a virgin. And there was so much tearing that happened, and like how traumatizing that was for him, even like being kind and like patient and slow or whatever, because they didn't know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's just if we can just love our bodies and be better at communicating and be better about creating safe spaces for our partners, no matter what the size is, no matter what like the skill set is, but being able to meet it like creatively, compassionately, like how do we navigate this whole thing, and just really trying to take that whole stigma away of like, oh, you're not good enough because like you're not big enough, right?
Right. So, one of the things that we do in the men's circle is actually one of the questions we ask. And I've asked it online, internationally, and within my men's groups for many years. And, raise your hand if you feel like your penis is too small. And about 90, or have thought at some time, and about 98% of men put their hands up.
Yeah.
And what men don't realize is that other men feel that about themselves because we don't talk about it. And
Yeah.
so I feel isolated. I feel alone in that thinking. Raise your hand if you've ever thought you ejaculate too quickly. Again, about 98% of men will raise their hand. We don't talk about these things. And
Yeah.
because we don't talk about the problem through shame, we can't find the solution. And so it just becomes
Yeah.
this really toxic loop within myself. When really all I need to do is speak about it, feel safe within myself and create safety for myself, so then I can create safety for my partner, and then we can have
Yeah.
this wonderful communicative and sharing and creative experience and get all of her needs met and all of my needs met too in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like people don't talk about body image issues that men have, like being like too flabby or like, no, I have to be too, like, I'm too strong or I'm too heavy. And like, whatever that looks like, I'm too short, I'm too tall. Like, we all, like, as human beings, can focus, we can hyperfixate on anything,
Yeah.
right? And just being like, how do we love ourselves for who we are, no matter what our gender is? How do we create spaces for like, all of us to have that conversation. And so I really love that you are having those conversations with men so they can be supported, so they don't have to feel alone. That there are places where you can learn how to have those kinds of conversations, like with yourself and your amazing partner, Olivia, with Cervix. And yeah, just wanted to give shouts out to people that are providing such spaces.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm obviously I've
Welcome.
learned a lot with Olivia and self cervix over the past 12 months. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a transformational journey, and it's I've been practicing for it. It's not like I just accidentally stepped into this. It's like I've been doing my work over time to be able to be open and to be able to receive this kind of love and learning and experience. It's
Yeah.
such a place to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also the chronic pain aspect of things and people doing pelvic floor physical therapy for men to help with the ability with like any sort of pre-ejaculation or pain with ejaculation or, like in the somatic experience, right, of releasing that energetic, the tightness. And like, there's so many different layers that I'm grateful are coming up more in conversation of how we can release pain and consideration and shame, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Generational shame that's being passed down.
Generational shame. Yeah, absolutely. There's a voice. I've been working with a voice in my head for years that tells me I'm not good enough.
Right.
And what I learned is that it's not my voice. It took me a long time, and I'm like, well, whose voice is it? Oh, it's my dad's. It's my dad shaming me, telling me I'm
Mm,
not good enough. Oh, hang on. It's not even his voice. That was passed to him from his father, who ruled with an iron fist. I get it.
right.
Of course, this has been passed down. Now I have an understanding and now I can work with it and go, thank you, not required. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. And that comes up to like being able to break those patterns. Like some of the work that I love that my partner, Chris Morrison, is doing with legacy
Mm,
builders for dads specifically,
mm,
especially like here in the US, is like breaking those patterns so that you can be who you want as a person, as a dad. And it
mm.
sounds like you too are doing some phenomenal work with men in general, not just dads in Australia, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, all men. Anyone who identifies as a man is welcome in the space. Absolutely. Yep.
I love that. And that last big piece too, of like any man who identifies as a man.
Yep. Yeah. And I
Right.
guess, I guess a lot of the conversation, a lot of what's happening, and this is something around shame with men is what is a man? Am
Yeah.
I a man? Am I manly enough? Like it's a
Mm,
lifelong pursuit because we don't have an image of what a man looks like. Maybe back in the day it was John Wayne or something. I don't know, but it's so diverse now of what a man is,
yeah.
and what a man can look like, and by sitting in, I mean, men's circles are not a new thing. These have been
Oh
done
yeah,
in
definitely not.
traditional societies for eons.
Eons. Yeah.
There's a reason men need to go and sit in a space with men and have these
Yeah.
conversations,
100%.
so that we don't have to do this with our women. We can come
Yeah.
back as full versions of ourselves to our women, to our families, to everyone around us. So the men, we can hold each other.
Yeah.
We can do that for each other so that we can be better versions and full versions and creative and playful versions of ourselves in the world.
No, I love that. And from the standpoint of helping each other too, like being able to advocate for ethical nurturing touch as men, because men need nurturing. And I think, like, just from what I've heard from other men, is that there is shame around the need for nurturing, the need to be held, right? And so few people modeling to men, how do you create that space where they can advocate that and not be invalidated for their experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things for me to share there. One is a very, very dear friend of mine. I witnessed his well, his death, and his demise into
Wow.
death, and it was through I knew him through men's
Sorry.
work. He wasn't in Adelaide; he was in interstate. His name was John Mulang, a beautiful man with amazing talent, amazing wisdom, amazing provocation, um, and. And I witnessed him dying. It was on his last retreat, last Nullarbor sojourn. And what I witnessed, I was kind of involved in the helping of the organizing of it, and I was on some Zoom calls. And what I witnessed is there were two men with him, and they were nurturing this man with loving touch and massage. This man is suffering. He was having chemo treatment and a lot of physical pain, but he had the men around him supporting him, massaging his hands, massaging his head, and his body looked lifeless. He didn't look like the same version of himself. And I witnessed these men holding the life in him and helping this man transition in the most comfortable way. And I saw absolute beauty in men, and I
Yeah.
saw a beautiful way to die. You
Yeah.
know, surrounded by good men, family, friends,
Yeah.
with loving, nurturing, gentle touch.
Yeah.
And what I've also come to realize is, through sexuality, that nurturing comes as well. I've been taught to have friction-based sex, which,
Right.
through porn, through watching the people around me, through the talk at the pub, all that sort of stuff. It's
Sure.
friction-based,
Yeah.
which is fun. It's great. Don't get me wrong. And
Yeah.
there are other forms of sex as well, which are slow and nurturing and re-energizing for my body. And I mean, I've never felt so nurtured and full in my life through this type of, yes, a slow sexual connection where I can ask for my needs and she can ask for her needs. And it's really just connection, deep,
Yeah.
deep connection with each other. And it just creates this feeling of nurturing. I mean, I can self-nurture, but I can also nurture through sexuality as well.
Yeah.
And there's just so many different ways of doing it. And the touch,
Absolutely.
and the touch. I'm not afraid of. I used to be quite fearful of hugging men, and now I meet a man in the street, like, let's hug, let's bring it. Yeah. I guess the culture is fairly similar here, to what you were saying, and I can be judged for those sorts of things. You know, I,
Absolutely.
it's still I know we're trying to break into certain areas here in Adelaide, and I know that we're getting resistance because of the culture. I grew up in
Yeah.
that culture. Like, it's not manly to speak about. I'm not going to talk about my feelings. Are you kidding me? No way. Like, I
Yeah.
get it. This is what we've been taught. Have a look at the opposite and what it can do for self and for society. Like, because doing the same thing is not working.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's not working for anybody. Just people, they bottle it up and then they eventually pop, and popping can look like violence. It can look like suicide. Suicide rates are 3 to 6 times higher than women for men, depending on the country statistics that you're looking at. Like, clearly there's a problem with what's going on, and shame is definitely part of that. So I'm grateful for today's conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the work. This is where we're leaning into. It's become a really big focus in Australia as well. Federal government knows that the single biggest killer of men is male suicide, and that domestic violence is, it's huge and it's unacceptable. I actually spoke at some what were they 16 days of activism events last year because we're trying to
Amazing.
change the messaging. The
Yeah.
messaging is the messaging is bad man at the moment, and it doesn't work. What I would like to see is there are a lot of good men. How about
Yes.
we encourage the good men? to come out and speak out and do good things. Because by
Yeah.
shaming men and saying bad man, what that does for all men, I believe, a high percentage of men, is push us down. Whereas if we're encouraging the good behavior, men go, oh, great, I'll act like that then. There's a lot of power in it, in changing the messaging, and the work that we do. We have a lot of in Australia. We have a lot of awareness campaigns. So there's a lot of people going around saying suicide rates are high, domestic violence is high. Just don't do it. Great, but why am I doing it in the first place? And where can I go to just don't do it? Because I can't just stop doing it. And
Right.
we this is what we do. We are providing, excuse me, we are providing the spaces for men to come in and to talk about this stuff, to own their stuff. I've been in domestic violence relationships. I have been violent, and I'm ashamed of that. I hold deep shame around that. I can now speak about it because I've spoken about it in circles. And I never, ever want to do it again. And what was I doing to create those situations? What was happening from my childhood that I had to do to keep myself safe? Come and talk about these things. There is nothing that I haven't heard in the circles with men. Men think they're alone in their process. They've had something happen to them as a child, and it is really hard to turn and face. It is really scary. But that men are not alone. There is a lot of hurt and a lot of pain that is being transpired to young men even today. And that's the next generation that's going to um, perpetrate those things onto the next generation, whether it's on women or their sons. And the only way to change that is come and talk about it, not be judged, not be sent. We're not. A lot of there's organizations where if you come and talk about certain things, what do they call it? Mandatory reporting. They have to report, and you have to go to when we don't do that. We're here to support the man and support him through his process. We will encourage him if therapy is required. Great. I'll encourage therapy. I have a wonderful counselor that I see. I love my counselor. It's a great balance and check for me. And so we encourage this behavior with men. Come and heal whatever's causing these things in society so that we can create a better version of society.
No,
Yeah.
I love that. And it's so important to be able to have a space where like men are coming to you and that even if they did something that was wrong and would be mandatory reported, like you're actually striving to stop the thing by helping them heal versus putting them in other directions. So you're still taking action to positively shift the narrative, shift the experience from the person who had a negative experience. Um, I've talked to men who also feel shame from the fact that they have been sexually assaulted or abused by women. They have been like in domestic, yeah, violent
Yep.
situations where the women have like hurt them on multiple levels, that men have been taken advantage of financially. Like there's all sorts of different yeah, right? And these are things that we don't talk about because like yeah, for all the reasons that we all know, right? And
Yeah.
so just like as a woman saying like, yes, like men are also being impacted negatively by women. And so for me, it becomes more of a human experience. None of us, regardless of our gender, like gender identification, should be experiencing sexual assault or harassment, violence, right? It's about us creating these spaces where people can share about their experience, get the support that they need so that they don't continue to add to these unfortunate situations that are created, right? On both
Yeah.
sides.
And what we're finding, we go knock on doors everywhere. We knock on mental health first aid facilities, for example. We go to job network providers. There's a lot of job network providers in Australia, and what I'm learning is about 50% of their men on their books are unable to find work through mental health circumstances in life. And they're at a loss. These agencies, they're all at a loss. They've got nowhere to send men. And we're a grassroots organization. We're turning up at their door. Hey, here we are, good, better, best men. They're like, great. Here is a solution. that we have actually got somewhere to send men because they're apart from counseling, psychotherapy, psychiatrists, there is nothing. There are no services on the ground. There are awareness campaigns, and there's the medical system, and there is nothing in between. And so
Mm.
this is what Good, Better, Best Men is. And what we're finding, we're growing really rapidly here in Adelaide.
Yeah,
And
it's
I'm
awesome.
I'm about to launch online as well. So in the 9 week program online, so that we can go national and international. Part of what we're doing with it, so we take men through a journey, so the 9 week journey of their life, and what's created them, being how they are now, and they, we don't tell them, they work it out for themselves. Men work it out for themselves, and men work out the solutions for themselves. But also, we're in that 9 weeks, we're teaching men how to run the circle ongoing so that the men still have a space to go to once we've finished the 9 weeks. It's not 9 weeks and see you later. It's like 9 weeks, here's how you run the circle ongoing. You guys can keep meeting.
Awesome.
And so what we're finding is now we've got circles men's circles all over Adelaide. We're building a community of men all over Adelaide. What we're also doing is we have what we call a heart sharing circle where we get men to come every 6 weeks or so, and we invite the whole community of good, better, best men to come together. So because we know we've got pockets of circles everywhere, but how do we get all the men together so they realize there are more men than just this, they're 10 men doing this all over Adelaide. And so we bring them all together.
Can be a little bit like herding cats sometimes, so I really commend you in
Thank you. And the final
that.
piece that we're doing, well, it's not final because we're just going to keep going, but we also run what we call a lead the journey. So once a man has done the begin the journey, we've had a lot of men saying to us, well, we want to do what you're doing. We're like, great, because we need the help. So how do we train a man to facilitate? And any man who has the passion can do this. I can't teach passion. I can't teach the desire to want to do this, but I can teach you how to do all the other stuff. And so if a man comes with the right attitude, we run a lead the journey weekend, where we bring men away, and essentially we're not teaching them how to facilitate. We're teaching them how to get themselves out the way while they're facilitating. And so we facilitate this deep weekend. There's one coming up in May, and I think we're going to do another one in September. And so we're creating
Nice.
more facilitators so what's happened this year is I've been facilitating 2 circles every week for the last 2 years. We've just launched 4 circles, and I'm not facilitating any of them. I've got 8 facilitators running them now. So men who have gone through the program, and this is how I want my community to be globally. So we're going to be doing this online, so the 9 week program online, and then we're going to be doing lead the journeys. We can fly into them if we've got enough men in a certain state or a certain country. It can be anywhere. Let's fly in and do lead the journeys and set up communities of men doing this all over the globe. This is my vision.
Phenomenal. I love it. I'm here for it. Whatever I
Yeah,
can do to create bridges to other men in other countries and states, sounds
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. We've got this model it's tried, it's working, it's solid, yeah, and it's repeatable and expandable, and it's doing so much good in the world.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that. And so are they all nonprofits for the circles or are
yeah,
those for-profit
absolutely.
circles?
No,
Okay,
no,
all
no. These are
nonprofit
all
circles.
not for profit. So we run a not for profit and charity, which is Good, Better, Best Men. So we use a lot of council properties and grants. We do a lot of grant applications to keep the costs down for the programs for men to keep it super affordable. And it is. It's ridiculously affordable for 9 weeks. But what it also does is, we're getting the support from councils and organisations, and they're spreading the word within their organisations. Like we're pretty well known in certain councils here in two particular councils here in Adelaide, and it's spreading pretty quickly. Um, and this can happen everywhere because there are no services for men. So if a man is listening and he's passionate about supporting men in a way that's not being done in your community, reach out. Like I would love to support, I would love to help. I've done a lot of work, personal work. I have a personal mission. I went away into the forest, into the Tarkine of Tasmania for 16 days, and worked out what my purpose in life is. And my mission is to lead heart-centered healing inspiring all to use their gifts in tune with nature. And
Mm.
this is what I'm doing. I'm leading heart-centered healing by men sitting in circle. This is heart-centered healing with other men. I get to lead this. I'm passionate about this. I've got a big vision. There are other men in this world that have big visions that I don't like, and they're ruling this world. And the only way for me to combat that is to have a vision as big or bigger on how to heal all of that. And here it is. And it's
Beautiful.
coming.
I love it so much. So if you could give men three key points to start their journey into conversation and facing their shame, what would you say?
Ah, thanks. Just turn up. Just turn up as you are. Men often think I'm too anxious, I'm too sad, I don't know how to speak my emotions. Everything in this space is by choice. You can just come and observe to start with. Just show up. Take that one step to do something different. That's the biggest piece of advice I think I can give is take that one step to do something different. I know that changed. It's changed my life dramatically, and I get to keep doing that because I've practiced it once now. I get to practice that again. In an argument, I used to be a flighter. So in an argument with a partner, I'm out of there. I'd go to the beach for a couple of hours and then come back with my tail between my legs, and not really resolve anything. But I did one thing different once, and it's because I had good men around me. Is I called a man, and I was in a state. I was crying. I was upset, and he came, and he didn't really do much. He just sat with me, and I was heard and not judged by this man, and it changed everything. It changed how I walked back into that room with my partner. How it changed how I was with my partner moving forward. Moving forward, I learned to stop flighting. I can now stand and hold a discussion, heated discussion, without getting out of there or without me escalating it. It really is just show up. You want three pieces? I don't think there are. One, just show up.
Well, I love it. I would say that for people that are not yet ready, either they don't have a community they feel like is near them,
Yeah,
um, that even starting the conversation by like saying the words out loud, even
yeah,
by
by
yourself,
themselves.
just getting
Yeah,
them out of
absolutely.
your body and then recording yourself, even if the recordings aren't going anywhere else as like a next step,
Yeah.
right? And then once you've done that and you're just working through and releasing the emotions, like
Mm.
finding a person that you can trust, a
Mm.
friend, a family member, a counselor, reach out to Luke or myself
Mm.
to start a conversation, right? Even if it's just through like Messenger, and then we can, like, if one of us can't help you for some reason, like we don't, like our facilitation style doesn't work for you. Both of us have people around the world and network that are really phenomenal men and some women that are supporting men that we can refer you to. So honoring that, like, you can always fire your counselor or your coach, or like if they're not the right fit for you, and really
Yeah.
being empowered to do that because it's about your experience, not about the coach or counselor in that regard. Like it's okay if we're not the right person for you. Like there's billions of people out there. And finding a person of heart-centered integrity that aligns with your intelligence style and how you process information and can hold space is what's most important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If I don't like the person I'm buying a car from, I don't buy the car from them. And it's the same with, people, there will be people who don't resonate with me, and that's okay. I'm cool with that. And we've got plenty of other men that you will resonate, or women, in the world who you will resonate with and will be able to do this work with. Yeah. You were mentioning about, speaking it out, great practice, recording it, great practice. The reason I do it in circle with other men is it accelerates the learning. And
Oh,
the
I
reason
agree.
the reason it the reason it does is because I'm hearing from 10 other men, and I've got that energy of 10 other men. I get to hear their experiences, they get to hear mine, and it accelerates it unbelievably. But yeah, I get it. If men are too anxious or too fearful, too shameful to step into a circle to start with, absolutely practice by doing it on your own. There are so many times that I'm like, I'm not doing that. I feel stupid. Like I've
Mhm.
learned to break through, even through. I mean, that's a shame piece in itself. Why am I shaming myself because I feel stupid for talking to myself in the room. Like, because somebody made a judgment of me when I was a kid. They said, "What are you doing talking to yourself? You're an idiot." Or, like, who said that to me as a child? Okay, now I need to work out how that came about. If
Yeah,
we can,
absolutely.
anybody can look at those pieces and what's causing that shame. And that's how insidious shame is. It's just a
Yeah.
thought in my head. I'm not doing that because it's stupid, or because is that because I think it's stupid, or is it that a story I've been told?
And
Yeah.
even if it is stupid, wouldn't it be great to increase your knowledge? That's like how we go from stupid and ignorant to wise and highly intelligent and capable. Like you have to go through the uncomfortable, like learning space to be able to transcend any weakness, any lack of knowledge. And in societies where they tell us that if you don't know that you're a failure, and if you're a failure, you don't have worth, and if you don't have worth, like why are you here?
Yeah.
Right? And that's when the shame starts. It's just like, it's an act of courage and defiance to just say no. Failure is the first step to me being able to get to my best self. And
Yeah.
it's only really failure if we choose to not learn from the things that we experience in life.
Absolutely. Look, my story is I feel like I've come a full circle. As a young man, as a teenager, I was quite racist. I was quite judgmental. I
Mm.
was quite sexist. I was pretty arrogant. I've got enough people around me that will back you back me in that. Yeah, he was arrogant.
So
Um,
it'll obey my ass, yeah.
yeah, but and that was because of my surroundings. That's the information I was being told at the time, and I was
Yeah.
believing. I then traveled. I traveled to Southeast
Mm.
Asia, and I learned that, oh, hang on, these people just want to be with their family and have a happy life like I'm doing back home. They're just doing it in a different way, and that's okay. Like we all actually just want the same thing. They're not my enemy, as I've been told that they are, by media or whatever that they are. These are just
Yeah.
people on the ground that just want to live a happy life, and we can all do this. And yeah, I've been able to change dramatically my belief system based on my surroundings, and it really really is just learning
Yeah.
and educating self and having I'm a sum of my experiences. So the more
Mm.
experiences I get to have in life and varied
Yeah.
experiences, the bigger I get to be, the more I get to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. Powerful. And now you're not racist and you're not sexist and you're not arrogant.
Oh, well, maybe a little bit of
I mean, we
arrogance.
have our
The
like
other two have
have
gone.
moments, right? I mean, you gotta have a little pride here and there. I I
Yeah.
used I used to joke that because I had my own moments of arrogance when I was a younger person, and I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
my arrogance only tends to peak out if I suddenly run across a very arrogant person. It's just
Yeah.
matching tone.
So great.
That I have to like check myself and be like, is this your highest self? Is this the person that you really want to be?
Yeah.
And then you just get to try and step back into the space of highest self, be like, okay, so this person's arrogance is really coming from a space of like wounded energy within them. And I can have compassion for that person and really healthy boundaries and honoring boundaries that I will have with myself of being able to check in and be like, okay, like what is their arrogance keen in that makes me want to be arrogant? Like
Mm.
that's the radical accountability, right? And being like, what is the wounded part in me that wants to rise and do battle with the wounded aspect of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we can honor those pieces humbly and laugh at ourselves and be like, oh, there's that thing again that I do sometimes because I'm still working on healing and having grace and saying, like, oh, that person over there is keen in shame, anger, insecurity, arrogance, like whatever those different things are that aren't in alignment with how we want to be in the world. Just saying, like, oh, I gotta go. Like I don't have the bandwidth right now to healthily be in presence with that person without me stepping out of integrity with myself and like spinning out and
Yeah.
playing the game of self-sabotage and emotional reactivity and then creating toxic situations or environments for myself or having to eat crow later when I have to go and apologize, even though I don't want to apologize to them because they were being a jerk. And then, like the story goes on. So it's just like, how much time do you actually want to spend in the long run cleaning up the mess of not having the discipline, courage, and personal accountability to just hold the line and humbly be like, nah, I'm not there right now, so I'm gonna go over here. Right.
It's actually a really important thing to learn to apologize, right? Because
Yes, absolutely.
otherwise I'm holding that shame in that I did this thing wrong. I have guilt for this thing and I'm not making amends of it for it. So it just sits in my body. These are all things that add up. I hear men that are, too anxious to come or, beating themselves up. I'm such a bad man, so I can't come into circle. And there's this story. And well, yeah, of course, you can't shift anything if you're in that state. Like, just come and try. Just come and try.
Yeah. There's so much to it in like self-forgiveness and like the love that you allow yourself to receive. Like a conversation that's been coming up a bit with the men that I've been talking to recently is receivership. And I think
Mm,
like the inability to receive is absolutely tied into some level of shame as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
it's something I've had to learn as well. Like, yeah, I'm a giver. I'm a doer. I keep everyone else happy. What? I'm allowed to receive something. I'm allowed to receive this gift or this pleasure. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, and receive and not have to balance it with a gift or doing this, right? Like you are valuable, you deserve to receive something just because.
Yeah.
And hold that space and be like, yeah, like thank and just say thank you
Yeah, because it makes
lovingly.
the other person pleasure. They make the other person feel good. And so I just need to receive that and go, thank you. How wonderful.
Yeah, be it time, money, affection, service, right? Like just
Yeah.
being able to be in a state of receivership, opportunity,
Mm,
right? So I've talked to people before, they're like, I don't deserve that opportunity. What I do? Like, why should I get to have that?
yeah.
That whole like be do have. And yeah, so I'm so grateful for your time today. I'm sure we could go on and on about the many
Oh,
different
I can
things.
keep
And
going. Yeah. I love
well,
talking to you this year. I've done it every time we've come together. We just go. It's wonderful.
thank you. No, I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. So we have a few minutes left. Is there
Yeah, great.
anything else that was like really deeply on your heart that you would love to be able to share?
Hmm. Yeah, just life. Life can be anything I want it to be. It doesn't need to be this
Yes, indeed.
scary, for much of my life, it's been a really fearful and scary place and a dangerous place. And it doesn't need to be like that. I can look at parts of the world and have that reflected back super easy, like it's everywhere. But my world isn't like that anymore. My world is playful and creative and fun. And I want to and in service to other men as well and women and the community. And yeah, I would love more men to come in and play the game. Like let's play. Let's make this world a better place. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that so much. Where can they find you, Luke?
Yeah, thank you so much. So,
You're
Good Better
welcome.
Best Men. We have everything available on our website, www.goodbetterbestmen.com. It shows all of our programs. You can register online for the national and international 9-week program that I'm writing at the moment, so we can get the first groups up and running. Um,
Awesome.
Also available at lukedisessa.com for personal sessions. What else have I got? Oh, another project we're launching, a very exciting project called Log Cabin. Look that one up. That's coming
Ooh.
in where we're taking a group of men into the pine forest and building a log cabin from scratch.
Oh, that sounds so fun. I've known people that have built log cabins before, so like it's a very cool process.
It's
Very
probably not an
rich.
American Canadian large style cabin. It's what we can do within a certain time frame, but it's involving all of the process and it's really from scratch. So it's yeah, an amazing process that I'm very excited to be bringing to men. So yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, stripping and drying the logs after felling them and
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, that's super, Super cool. Well, thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us today. Thank you
Mm.
for how you are serving humanity and the men. And it's always lovely to get to connect with you, Luke.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Elysia, and thank you for all the work you're doing out there too. I mean, you're bringing men together globally. Magnificent.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And speaking of which, people have 4 more days to be able to pay what you can for one-on-one coaching. And then my group coaching that is actually co-ed is the first time I've done a paid co-ed event because it's usually either those that identify as men or those who identify as women. So it's a really fantastic opportunity for people to come together on Saturday, March 15th for a 3-month coaching program. And last but not least, we have one of my favorite questions, which is Luke, who inspires you in the world today?
Thank you, Elysia. Who inspires me in the world today? There are numerous people that inspire me in the world. So I've got to mention Michael Brennan. He's my colleague, my mentor, an elder, who I started Good, Better, Best Men with. He's the man that I can lean on at any time. He is a wonderful inspiration. Uncle Bonnie Gibson is another elder in our
Mm.
community who inspires me. Olivia, my partner, she absolutely inspires me with the level of commitment and work to her mission in the world and her beautiful message and the beauty she's creating in the world inspires me.
I love that.
Most of all, what inspires me is the men who come to Circle and the men who just share raw from their heart what's going on in their lives, what's real for them. I'm getting shivers talking about it. Every single
Mm.
time I hear a man share in Circle and just shift something is inspiration for me to keep doing this. It changes men's lives for the better. And each man that steps in is an absolute inspiration. Yeah.
It's so
Thanks.
powerful. You're very welcome. What a beautiful note to just like get to leave off. So thanks again, everybody, for watching. We hope that you enjoyed our time together today and it opened some things up for you and gave you inspiration and hope that there are places that you can get the support that you need. So come find us on Global Resources for Men on YouTube, the Facebook page, and just globalresourcesformen.com. So until next time, we'll see y'all later. Bye, everybody.
So much. Thanks, Alicia.
You're welcome.